river rock panel into those 2x2s, thus holding it down to the deck. Another means of securing this, if you will, is the caulking that will go on the bottom to dress the edge there. This is a countersink bit. These are the only countersink holes that you're going to need to make, and that's on 2 screw holes on each side to lock the river rock panel, or to secure the river rock panel into the 2x2, giving you a bottom support, if you will, or locking you to the deck. Again, the caulking would also, that big of a footprint is got to be almost 9 foot around that column, so the caulking will also be a measure of bond, if you will, that's temporal, that you can remove if you should be so inclined. If you're on a concrete surface, obviously you could grout that, and that would give you a bond, so to speak. Countersinking the holes, then he's going to pilot drill the hole just through the panel, not into the wood, just enough to get through that column. And then he'll take a 3-inch, or I'm sorry, an 1 5/8 screw. This one might be a 3-inch. I'm not sure. We use 3-inch screws. This is a 3-inch screw he's got there. And to secure the 2 halves together, we used a 3-inch screw. Now these are deck screws that are treated for exterior use. Again, 2 on each half will secure this down to the bottom. That's the first in. And again, he's dealing with the 2 outside columns at this point. This is the far right one, and then we'll have the far left one be next. Now Skylar is taking and screwing on an angle just a little bit these screws to allow for you to reach over and drop the 2x2 down into the floor there, and then reach down in through the top and screw those into place. Now another way of doing this, mind you, this was a 4-foot column. Some people might not be able to easily reach down in there. Well, you can mark the 2 halves once you get them centered. You can make marks on the outside of the footprint area, tracing around it, and then remove the halves, put the 2x2 down, and then put the halves back together if you can't reach in. You should be able to reach in on a 4-foot reach, though, once you have your screws, and that's what he's doing here. The screws are already in. Now he's locking it down to the deck. If you were in a masonry situation, concrete or brick, block, whatever, you would be able to use a concrete anchor as opposed to a wood screw, obviously. You're still going to utilize that 2x2, and we chose this 2x2 material because, again, it is plastic lumber. It's not going to rot. Now, mind you, this deck does have a porch over it, so it's not like it's going to get rain, but if you were in a wet situation of any kind, I think the plastic lumber is going to outlive any kind of a wood product that you could find. Again, securing these down into place and then countersinking. You're countersinking into the grout area, if you'll notice. There's 2 areas, or maybe 3, depending on the stone, that you have an opportunity to drill through. You wouldn't do this through the rock. You're going to go into a grout joint. Now, again, all 4 columns are set, and the 2 outside are centered. Now we're using a string line, and we're gauging it with a 1/2-inch piece of ply.
At the same time, you're going to have to take measurements on this side and that side of each post. Should be 9 3/4. Then you got to check your string line again. Check your string line again. Check your tape again. All right. Screw them down.
So at this point, all of the bases are screwed down, and now we're putting on the square tapered column halves, and they just slide in on the side, you know, because you're not going to lift up and over. They're designed to slide in because you can't lift up beyond the beam, so you're just sliding them in on a parallel to the tops of the river rock there. Once the two halves are together, what the guys will generally do is take a screw on each half on the bottom and lock those two together to where they're aligned. Then they'll start by taking one side all the way up and lining it up as they screw it together. There's 10 screws on each half, and they're already countersunk for you. You just got to pilot. Yeah, you would have to pilot hole. We do have the countersinks into the mold. You should counter drill, or we have the countersink holes already in the mold. What you would want to do is to take a pilot hole through the countersink just to make sure you can go through before you put them up, and then you can screw them together. Again, just making sure your surfaces are lining up. That's all you've got to do. And at this point, that's all they're going to do. They're going to go through all of the columns, stacking them on top and screwing them together to where they're lined up. And then after that, then they'll secure the column, the square tapered column up to the beam. Then they'll secure it to the river rock column. And you'll see that as we go forth. But again, just like right now, you can see the misalignment on that one. They're just going to line these up, starting at the bottom and then screwing all the way up to the top. In some cases, you can use a bar clamp if you have a kind of an ornery one that's not holding together for you, or if you're doing it by yourself. That's how I did it, was a bar clamp. Worked really nice. But again, notice they're starting with the bottom and then on each side and then just screwing up. On some of this footage, I sped up the drilling process because it just was slow. Not that it's slow in real time, but it's just more footage than you needed to see at the slow real time. So again, these are 1 5/8" deck screws. What we're using is the Phillips Plus head because it's a bigger number 2 head, Phillips head, and it's got the square drive in the middle. So it really does hold a good bite there. Again, the countersinks are provided so that when you seat the screw, it's just below the surface, so that when we do caulk it, it will not be protruding through that caulk, or be a speed bump, as I like to call them. Again, notice they're coming in from the side, sliding in. What we did on the top of these was, I believe that the column top, the capital is 13.5 inches. So maybe it was. I just remember 6 5/8 was the middle of it. So find the middle, mark it on the column, and then you obviously know a 3.5 inch beam, half of that. Make a mark on that, and those two should line up. The key in anything is to center it. The post, the river rock pillars are centered around the post. These should then also be centered. You'll find, though, that there's a lean one way or the other. That's why we drive it up through the capital into the beam first. It elevates that. You'll see that whole square tapered column lift up off that river rock just a tiny bit. Right now it's sitting on it. It's not so much that we don't want it sitting on it, but it's just, when you suck it up a little, you'll find it's then going to be perfectly centered. Right now it could be leaning 1 inch or 2 one way or the other if it's just sitting on the river rock. Countersinking again. Now these holes are not provided in the factory, so you're going to countersink this. Notice the mark on the beam, notice the mark on the capital. We are then screwing this up, and you'll see what I'm talking about. He's actually going to suck this up, and it'll lift up off that column a little bit. See that? Again, now we can countersink these holes. These are not provided either. They are just needing to be 2 screws, 1 on each side, and that's all we need to secure that to the river rock column. Pre-drilling through both the column and the flange underneath is important. And then taking, I believe they're going to use a 3-inch screw here. It doesn't need to be that long, but I think that's just what they had. Again, don't draw this one up too much. You'll pull the whole column, square taper column, to one side. You want an even draw, centering it on top of that river rock column.